Good morning.
With a history spanning over 20 years, the Tekken fighting games have contained dozens upon dozens of characters within its ever-growing roster. The main element that ties them all together is the Mishima Family and their recurring King of the Iron Fist tournament. While they fight in the game on equal ground, their motives for participation in relation to the family differ greatly, and, over the numerous entries, has become rather difficult to remain consistent. That's because the presented storyline for each character usually requires them to have won the tournament, but since there can only be one actual winner for every game, all other outcomes are best seen as what-if scenarios and not something to be taken seriously. Before getting started, it should be noted that discussing the stories behind these characters can never be considered conclusive or definitive, as they largely revolve around alternate outcomes that can be loosely interpreted to mean many things. When asked about particular events, series director Katsuhiro Harada has often made statements drastically changing how something may have been originally perceived or interpreted. And finally, as typical with these sorts of discussions, some characters will likely have more worth bringing up than others. So characters like Unknown, Tiger Jackson, Eliza, or Gon have little to no connection to other characters because, being a palette swap or one-time guest character, they were never intended to. With that out of the way, let's begin. Raised as an orphan in a monastery, King was a former Catholic priest who joins the tournament in the hopes of winning the prize money to build an orphanage and save other street children. He manages to do so with the help of his friend and rival Armor King, which leads to a celebratory moment made all the more stranger by showcasing the children in live action. After King becomes depressed over an orphan's death, Armor King motivates him to recover from his alcoholism and win the next tournament to fund the orphanage, which leads to another moment with the creepy live-action children. When King is killed by Ogre, more on him later, Armor King decides to train another orphan to become the new king. He does this while struggling with a heart condition and a damaged eye received from the original king. Armor King is later murdered in a fight with Craig Marduk, a fighter who lost his career over a scandal and is currently serving time in a state penitentiary. King pays for his release and waits for him at the next tournament. After winning and donating the money to charity, King plans to kill Craig while he is hospitalized, only to stop when he sees a photo of Marduk's family. The two have a rematch in the next tournament where they reconcile their differences. Things seem back to normal until a new Armor King makes himself known when he attacks Marduk. At first, King and Marduk are both in disbelief as they had thought Armor King to be dead, but they later discover this new one to be his brother, continuing the Armor King legacy. He shows up again with a luchadora named JC, who is actually Julia Chang, the adopted daughter of Michelle Chang. Michelle is a Native American woman of Chinese descent, whose father is killed by men hired by the Mishima family, so she enters the tournament in order to seek revenge. Her mother is later kidnapped by the Mishimas, who want the pendant Michelle wears around her neck. After adopting Julia, Michelle is now the one who is kidnapped by the Mishimas for her pendant, which is actually the key to resurrecting Ogre. By the end of the third tournament, Julia manages to rescue her mother and the two of them return home. Julia becomes a college student studying archaeology and makes it her mission to rejuvenate her native homeland from a rapidly changing ecosystem. By the fourth tournament, she joins an organization funded by the G Corporation, more on them later, only to discover the true motives behind their efforts of reforestation. She manages to destroy their research and escape from this professor who's a terrible shot.
Stupid woman!
One day, Julia is asked to take on a wrestler alter ego when a friend of hers is injured in a car accident. Her mother, Michelle, shows an interest in her costume, leading the two of them to become a wrestling duo. Throughout their story, the Changs have often come across Ganryu, a high-ranking sumo wrestler who is hired by the Mishima family as a bodyguard following a dishonorable discharge and to feed his gambling addiction. Ganryu falls in love with Michelle and is rejected, but he then sees her daughter Julia and subsequently falls in love with her. He joins the fifth tournament and recovers the reforestation data Julia had been searching for, only to be rejected once again.
I can't thank you enough. With this, I'll be able to bring back the forest.
No, それはそれとして、実はで壊すな。おいでも
ジュリアちゃんのことを好きになってしまったでごわす。ジュリアちゃん。
Nina Williams is an assassin trained by her parents and was sent to assassinate the Mishima family in the first 2 tournaments. Her main drive, however, is shown to be a rivalry with her younger sister Anna. The two are often seen combating each other, whether it's bickering over a misplaced shoe or starting a gunfight in a public space. It's possible that the origin of their feud stems from their father training Nina while neglecting Anna, but the two of them blame each other for his death. After failing to assassinate the Mishimas, Nina becomes a test subject for Dr. Boskanovich, more on him later, and is placed in cryogenic sleep for 15 years. Anna learns of this and offers to place herself in cryogenic sleep as well, to awaken at the same time as Nina. This results in both of them aging in time but still appearing young. When they awaken, Nina suffers from amnesia but recovers her memories upon visiting her father's grave. Nina continues her life as a contract assassin, but soon learns of a target named Steve Fox, a champion boxer who never knew his parents and seeks to discover the origin of a scar on his arm. Both Nina and Steve eventually discover that the two of them may actually be mother and son through vitro fertilization. Steve eventually recalls his childhood as a test subject for the Mishima family, where his only refuge came from a German scientist named Emma, the mother of Eleanor Cleason, a grief-stricken spelunker who seeks revenge for her murder. After the 5th tournament, Steve destroys the Mishima laboratories where he was supposedly conceived in an attempt to clear his conscience. Steve eventually becomes friends with Paul Phoenix in martial law. Paul is very hostile to the Mishima family and extremely overconfident in his skills as a judo fighter, always looking for stronger opponents, whether they be giant bears or even aliens from another planet. He is best friends with Martial Law, who started out as the designer's tribute to martial artist Bruce Lee. Marshall works in a Chinese restaurant and uses his prize money to eventually open a martial arts school. While he is absent for the 3rd tournament, he is replaced by his son Forrest Law, who also goes on adventures with Paul. After losing a franchise war with a competitor, Marshall is forced to declare bankruptcy and chooses to enter the next tournament to pay off his debts. Whether he spends his prize money to restart his restaurant business only to have it fail again, or pay for his son's medical bills following an accident, martial law is constantly shown as being debt-ridden, a trait that also becomes associated with Paul.
Come on, man. Pay the bill already. Round 1, fight.
So, in order to rid themselves of debt, the two join the following tournament purely for the sake of the prize money, doing whatever it takes to win, even if it means screwing the other over in the process.
Come on, man!
Sorry, guys. See ya!
Back when martial law was running his dojo, his students were attacked by Paekdo-san, a rival taekwondo master who runs his own dojo. While initially portrayed as a villain, he becomes a more sympathetic character once his tragic past is revealed. Paekdo-san is constantly shown mourning his father, a former taekwondo champion whose death he feels responsible for. He now lives his life being a strict teacher to Hwarong, his hot-headed student who can be a bit overconfident in his own skills. After his master succumbs to a coma following an encounter with Ogre, Hwarong takes it upon himself to enter the 3rd tournament and avenge him, eventually forming a rivalry with Jin Kazama, who is related to the Mishima family, but more on him later. He is then drafted into the South Korean military and assigned to a special operations division, and though Hwarong becomes highly regarded and successful, he soon longs for his early days as a street hustler. Hwarong is eventually taken into custody under the charge of desertion, and after being discharged from the military, he returns to his roots and hunting down Jin Kazama. Just as martial law and his son were an homage to Bruce Lee, many have speculated the designers were paying homage to martial artist Sammo Hung with Robert Richards, more commonly referred to as Bob. A martial arts prodigy from the United States, Bob believed that gaining an excessive amount of weight while maintaining his former agility would grant him a power advantage over opponents he'd previously lost to. After winning the 6th tournament, he became an overnight celebrity, which ironically leads him to also lose that excess weight he had gained without him noticing.
No!
Whether he ultimately does or not, Bob is shown again taking up an alter ego where he saves people as a masked vigilante. While Bob's storyline is relatively detached from the Mishima family than most characters in Tekken, another character that's been in the series even longer and is arguably even more detached is Mokujin, and its lesser-known counterparts Tetsujin and Kinjin. Designed as a training dummy made from a 2,000-year-old oak tree, Mokujin comes to life through a supernatural entity that's vaguely explained in order to supposedly assist other martial artists. However, Mokujin is instead portrayed performing actions like carrying buckets of water for a female Mokujin, playing a wooden arcade machine of Tekken 3, or even visiting the offices of Bandai Namco. While many of the characters discussed so far are considered by some fans to be their favorites, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that the most compelling aspect of the Tekken story belongs to the Mishima family, and it all begins with the series' perennial antagonist Heihachi Mishima. Heihachi was born the son of Jinpachi Mishima, the founder of a multinational conglomerate known as the Mishima Zaibatsu, which is responsible for hosting the King of the Iron Fist tournament. Through the staging of a coup d'etat, Heihachi manages to steal the company away from his father, acquire his own private army called the Tekken Force, and become an industrial business. In the time that he controlled the Mishima Zaibatsu, the number of diverse characters the Mishima family became affiliated with would grow exponentially. For instance, Heihachi adopts an abandoned cub he finds in the forest as a pet and names him Kuma. After training to fight and even understand Japanese, Kuma becomes Heihachi's bodyguard. Kuma would form a rivalry with Paul Phoenix until his death of old age. Fortunately, his child would be raised by Heihachi to become the newer, smarter Kuma, and even develop his own rivalry with Paul Phoenix. Although Kuma is eternally loyal to Heihachi, in the times when he enters the tournament and comes out the victor, he never hesitates to throw his master under the bus. Besides Kuma, Heihachi also adopts a silver-haired boy he discovers on the streets named Li Xiaolan. While Heihachi never felt any parental emotions toward him, Li was trusted enough to be placed in charge of the Mishima Zaibatsu to a limited extent. Over the numerous tournaments, Li would betray Heihachi to meet his own ends, and form a rivalry with Heihachi's biological son, Kazuya, but more on him later. This has led to many situations where Li manages to take over the entire Zaibatsu and screw over the Mishima family in a number of increasingly ludicrous ways, always concluding with his signature catchphrase, "Excellent."
Excellent.
Excellent.
When he is expelled from the Zaibatsu following the end of the second tournament, Li returns to the fourth tournament under the guise of the purple-haired, sunglass-wearing Violet. With this alter ego, Li becomes a leading manufacturer of humanoid robots known as Combot, designed to be the ultimate fighting weapon, if not for the occasional bugs left unchecked.
You did well, Combot. Now, the world is mine for the taking.
As bad as Heihachi's relation is to Li, his mediocre paternal skills are on full display when it comes to his son, Kazuya Mishima. Kazuya starts out as the protagonist of the series when he is tossed off a cliff by his father at a young age to determine if he is worthy enough to be a successor. He survives the fall by making a deal with the devil in order to get revenge on his father. Kazuya officially wins the first tournament and tosses his father off a cliff before smiling in satisfaction. With this takeover of the Mishima Zaibatsu, Kazuya becomes the new antagonist of the series and starts the next tournament to take out any opposing forces. Anna Williams becomes Kazuya's bodyguard alongside Ganryu and Bruce Irvin, a kickboxing champion who remains loyal to Kazuya but still has a soft spot for children and small animals, perhaps due to his own upbringing as an orphan.
You're safe now.
Before being recruited by Kazuya, Bruce has a near-death experience involving a plane crash and a Hong Kong detective whose partner is Lei Wulong. Virtuous in nature, Lei is a law-abiding police officer often portrayed as comic relief in the series, and possibly the designer's tribute to martial artist Jackie Chan.
Move! Get out of the way! Yeah!
The bag! Leave it here!
This is Wulong. I have a purse snatcher in custody.
A series of murders and illegal operations with the Mafia leads him to enter the second tournament to investigate Kazuya Mishima. Thanks to his workaholic lifestyle, Lei has investigated numerous crime syndicates around the world, including the assassination attempt of Steve Fox by Nina Williams. By the fifth tournament, Lei investigates a series of attacks occurring at dojos that are caused by Fang Wei, a ruthless Kempo master who is addicted to becoming stronger. When scolded by his master, Fang kills him without hesitation by punching him through a tree. He then seeks to learn the secrets of the Godfist scrolls, stolen by the Mishima family, which make him powerful enough to destroy entire mountains and molten rock straight out of a volcano with a single punch. While in control of the Zaibatsu, Kazuya kidnaps a former leading scientist from Russia named Dr. Boskanovich, who is forced to work for him. Boskanovich was responsible for developing a series of killer robots in the Soviet Union called Jacks, which are upgraded in each Tekken installment with the exception of Tekken 4. To combat these series of robots, Boskanovich also designed the sunglass and hat-wearing prototype Jack, but it gets destroyed by the second tournament. The second version of Jack somehow overcomes his programming to save an orphan girl named Jane, but is soon destroyed by Dr. Abel, a rival to Dr. Boskanovich who works for the biotech firm G Corporation and was previously established as being a terrible shot.
Stupid woman!
20 years later, Jane becomes a physicist who works with the Mishima Zaibatsu to resurrect the robot that saved her life as a child in the form of Gunjack. After an attack from Dr. Abel and the Tekken force that destroys Gunjack, Jane joins the robotic division of the G Corporation where further upgrades to Jack are being produced. Despite his supposed death in a plane crash involving Bruce Irvin, Lei Wulong's detective partner is later said to have died in a shootout, only to be resurrected by Dr. Abel and become Brian Fury, a psychotic murderer with cybernetic enhancements who's known for his sinister laugh. Brian originally enters the tournament to hunt down Dr. Boskanovich, but is eventually saved by him and given an offer to become further mechanized in exchange for his original body. Brian agrees and later proceeds to enter more tournaments to test out his new body's capabilities, where he is shown getting into multiple confrontations with Yoshimitsu, the leader of the Manji clan. Yoshimitsu is a ninja who's taken on various forms throughout the series, and has even made appearances in Namco's Soul Calibur series. He initially enters the tournament to acquire money and give it to the poor, causing martial law to make this face. When Yoshimitsu learns of Dr. Boskanovich, he enters the second tournament in order to rescue him from the Mishima family. They become good friends and Yoshimitsu even chooses to enter the third tournament to obtain the blood of Ogre that the doctor needs in order to stay alive. Whether or not that blood proved useful remains to be seen. Despite saving his life before, Brian Fury chooses to kill members of the Manji clan, resulting in their numerous confrontations together. One member of the Manji clan who was expelled was Kunimitsu, after Yoshimitsu discovered she had been stealing from them. Kunimitsu has shown interest in stealing a number of items from other characters believed to be of high value, such as Michelle Chang's pendant and Yoshimitsu's sword. While still under the orders of Kazuya, Bogdanovich conducted a genetic experiment which combined the genes of a martial artist and a wild animal to form a dinosaur made from a fossil named Alex and a kangaroo named Roger. After being deemed worthless creations, both of them manage to escape before Kazuya can kill them, and they are trained to wrestle by Armor King. They both manage to escape to Australia with the help of Jun Kazama, but more on her later. 20 years later, Roger is kidnapped, resulting in his wife and son, Roger Jr., to enter the 5th tournament and rescue him. For all their efforts, it's later revealed that Roger was actually living a rather comfortable life, away from his responsibilities, much to the disappointment of his son, and even manages to become acquainted with other female kangaroos, much to the disappointment of his wife. Roger tries to make amends with his family, but when he finds them to be much happier with Alex, he is crushed, both figuratively and literally. The smuggling and experimentation on endangered species by the Mishima Zaibatsu motivates Jun Kazama, an officer of a wildlife protection organization, to enter the 2nd tournament in order to arrest Kazuya. Jun manages to free Alex and Roger, and though she fails to stop Kazuya, the two of them form a close relationship, the details of which have never been made clear. Jun has the ability to suppress the devil gene within Kazuya, which allows him to transform into a demonic creature he's come to possess ever since being thrown off a cliff by his father. Alongside Jun, another character emerges whose sole purpose is to save Kazuya from the corruption of the devil gene known as Angel. There's not much known about her origin outside of that one purpose, and seeing as how the devil gene is a recurring struggle within the Mishima family, her efforts to save or redeem Kazuya could be seen as being done in vain. By the end of the 2nd tournament, it is revealed that Heihachi is not only alive, but manages to defeat his son Kazuya. Before his death, Kazuya impregnates Jun with a son she names Jin Kazama, whom she raises in the seclusion of the wilderness. With Kazuya dead, the spirit of the devil attempts to merge with her son, but Jun keeps him protected. That is until she mysteriously disappears after his 15th birthday, and Jin believes she may have been killed. While the actual whereabouts of Jun are never revealed, Jin remembers being told that if anything were to happen to her, he should look for Heihachi Mishima. Jin would go on to live with his grandfather and train under his supervision. Around this time, Heihachi's Tekken force discovers ancient ruins in Central America, believed to contain a legendary Aztec god of fighting named Ogre, who is responsible for killing the original king, putting Paekdo-san into a coma, and whom Jin believes murdered his mother. Upon learning of Ogre and Jun's fate, Heihachi plans to use his grandson as a decoy to capture Ogre and somehow rule the world. While attending high school at the Mishima Polytechnic, Jin forms a rivalry with Hwoarang and becomes friends with Ling Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu is a Chinese girl who's trained in martial arts by her grandfather Wang Jinrei, a kind-hearted old man who was once a close friend to Heihachi's father Jinpachi back when he was still alive. Alongside her close friend Miharu Hirano, Xiaoyu is often accompanied by her pet and bodyguard Panda, who can understand whatever she says, and garners a strong affection from Kuma that largely goes ignored. While generally good-natured, Xiaoyu's undying affection for Jin and fascination with the Mishima family comes across as very naive, if not a bit obtuse. For instance, when she wins the tournament or takes over the Mishima Zaibatsu, her first goal is to build an amusement park for herself, which has been a lifelong dream. Or when she learns the violent history of the Mishima family, she seeks the help of an old scientist to construct a time machine so she can somehow right the wrongs of the past.
もしも成功したらみんな幸せになれるかも。
どうだ怖いか。
やっぱり失敗か。歴史を変えたかったのに。
お前さんが過去に何かしようがすまいが起こってしまった歴史は変わらんよ。まあちょっと修正されるぐらいが関の山じゃん。
After training to defeat Ogre for 4 years, Jin enters the third tournament and defeats his grandfather, only to have Heihachi's power become absorbed into Ogre, transforming him into true Ogre. Jin still manages to defeat the Aztec god, but is then shot down by Heihachi and his Tekken 4 soldiers. Just as Heihachi is walking away, Jin awakens into a devil form, defeats the soldiers, and slams Heihachi through a wall before flying away into the night. Meanwhile, a man named Eddie Gordo escapes from a prison in Brazil thanks to an old man who teaches him capoeira. Eddie had been in jail for 8 years becoming a capoeira master, and enters the tournament in order to get revenge for his father who was murdered while investigating drug kingpins. Eddie also swears to pass on the art of capoeira to the old man's granddaughter, Christy Montero, who later enters the tournament herself in order to find a cure for her grandfather's illness. After winning the tournament, Eddie Gordo breaks into the drug lord's mansion, where he discovers that the man they had been working for was Kazuya Mishima, who was believed to be dead. After being tossed into a volcano by his father, Kazuya's remains are recovered by the G Corporation, who manage to revive him and help him control the devil gene in his body. When Heihachi learns of this, he sends his Tekken 4 soldiers to their laboratories, only to discover Kazuya and get their asses handed to them. So in order to lure out both Kazuya and Jin, the latter of which had been hiding out in Australia, Heihachi sets a trap by announcing the 4th tournament. Jin is eventually captured by Heihachi and placed in his Hanmaru compound in the forest. Kazuya agrees to meet Heihachi there and finds his son suspended in chains. They release Jin in order to obtain the devil gene within his body, but Jin manages to defeat both of them. Jin prepares to deliver the killing blow on Heihachi, but changes his mind when he sees a vision of his mother, and chooses instead to escape.
風間淳に感謝しろ。
Shortly afterwards, the G Corporation launches an army of Jacks into the Hanmaru compound to assassinate them. Both Heihachi and Kazuya agree to fight together until Kazuya betrays him and escapes. One of the Jacks self-destructs, blowing up the compound and supposedly Heihachi along with him. The explosion is observed from a distance by Raven.
Heihachi Mishima is dead.
an international intelligence agent who's so bad at his job that he fails to notice Heihachi's body flying away from the compound and landing in a grave where he recovers over the next several weeks. Raven would later come across Sergei Dragunov, a merciless special operative working for the Russian government who seeks to acquire the devil gene for themselves. With the destruction of the compound, it is revealed to be the resting place of Jinpachi Mishima, who awakens with superpowers to reclaim the Mishima Zaibatsu and start the 5th tournament in order to find someone who is worthy enough to free his body from a vengeful spirit. While Kazuya returns to the G Corporation and murders the ones who tried to kill him, making him the new head of the company, Jin can no longer contain the devil gene within him and transforms into Devil Jin. With his mother gone, the only one who is shown capable of saving Jin is Asuka Kazama, a martial artist known for her Kansai accent, and being a presumed relative to Jin given her last name. When the two encounter each other, Asuka is shown to have the ability to suppress Jin's devil form, but instead of her inherent powers being the main takeaway of their meeting, it turns out to be Asuka's other endowments. Though Asuka is a well-regarded gang mediator and general peacekeeper among her peers, even they can't help but be distracted when around her. Asuka has had her run-ins with other characters like Fang Wei after he attacks her father and steals the sign from their dojo. But the main character she is shown to have the most issues with is Lily Rochefort. Born and raised by a wealthy family in Monaco alongside her faithful butler Sebastian, Lily's peaceful life takes a turn when she is captured and held for ransom. Lily manages to escape her captors, but the incident causes her to develop an urge to fight. When she eventually learns the Mishima Zaibatsu may be the source of her father's problems, she enters the 5th tournament to make him proud, blissfully unaware of the repercussions to her actions.
Roseburg Enterprises, a world-famous oil company, has filed for bankruptcy. Industry analysts speculate it is due to the split-up of the Mishima Zaibatsu, a major business partner.
After losing a fight to Asuka, Lily decides to view her as a rival and always wants to start a fist fight with her, even if the situation doesn't call for it.
I found you, Asuka Kazama. Too bad it will be a short reunion.
やかましいわこのドワゴ食い物の恨みがでかいってこと思い知らせたれ
Brilliant. She's already making friends. I'm so proud of her.
When Jin faces his great-grandfather in the 5th tournament, he wins the fight and becomes the new leader of the Mishima Zaibatsu. With a Tekken Force army at his disposal, Jin decides to have the Zaibatsu become a global superpower and starts a war with the entire world. Jin recruits both Nina Williams and Eddie Gordo to assist him, promising the latter a cure for his master's illness. One of their air raids over a chapel kills a woman during her wedding, who turns out to be the sister of Miguel Caballero Rojo, who then dedicates his life to getting revenge on Jin. The G Corporation becomes the Zaibatsu's strongest opposition, and, in the eyes of many, the only salvation from their plans of world domination. Unbeknownst to them, Kazuya also has aspirations to take over the world and places a bounty on Jin's head for whoever can capture him dead or alive. In response, Jin announces the beginning of the 6th tournament in an attempt to stop the G Corporation and settle the score with his father. Their battles, combined with the mass destruction around the world, somehow manages to create enough negative energy to resurrect Azazel, a creature buried in an ancient tomb that is guarded by a woman named Zafina, who was raised since childhood to protect it. Whoever manages to defeat Azazel in battle can gain access to a glowing orb within its body, which can grant anyone it touches untold powers. Eventually, a faction of soldiers within the Tekken force stage a coup d'etat against both the Zaibatsu and the G Corporation. They are led by a soldier named Lars Alexanderson, who's so strong he can punch rockets out of the air with a single hand. During a mission, Lars discovers an android named Alyssa, who is designed to look like the deceased daughter of Dr. Boskanovich. A surprise attack from the G Corporation causes Lars to suffer amnesia, just as Alyssa becomes activated. Both unaware of their purpose, the two of them begin a journey together to discover their origins. Along the way, they find Heihachi Mishima living in solitude, and Lars discovers he is actually Heihachi's illegitimate son, a revelation Heihachi takes with as much consideration as expected from him. At least Kazuya takes the news in stride. By the time Lars confronts Jin, it is revealed that Alyssa was originally designed to serve and obey his every command. Lars must then defeat his former companion, causing her body to shut down, but not before she gives a speech that's about as sappy and melodramatic as these things get. Jin then reveals that the reason he started this war against the world is to resurrect Azazel so he can defeat him and rid himself of the devil gene. Jin ultimately gets his wish while Lars recovers Alyssa's body to have it repaired by Lee. After Lars drives off toward his next mission, Jin's body is discovered in the desert with a tattoo visible on his arm, indicating that he still possesses the devil gene within him. From a casual fan's perspective, the Tekken games are highly regarded just as much for its action set pieces as it is for having a cheeky sense of humor. But trying to piece together the storyline over all the games will only yield a narrative that is painfully contrived, unnecessarily convoluted, or just plain stupid. That's because a lot of the motivations for these characters, whether they be main players or side actors, are often short-sighted or one-dimensional, leading to scenarios that become overly predictable and increasingly derivative the more times it happens. The worst offenders are of course the Mishima family, whose undying lust for revenge against one another have resulted in characters getting killed off only to come back to life either in the next installment or in the very same game where they supposedly died. Characters in Tekken have died or been brought back so many times that whenever the stakes are raised for the next game, escalating what began as a personal feud into something encompassing the entire world, instead of raising tensions and subsequently the player's level of investment, it can come off feeling all the more redundant because it lacks any of the proposed bite. This has been an ongoing issue that even the developers are surely familiar with to some degree, as it was even brought up in one of the game's endings where a number of the least popular characters in the series discuss their futures together.
それはそうと友よ。お
前は前作でアザゼルを倒した後死んではいなかったか。人気キャラとして危うく消されそうになったが、慈悲深い開発チームのおかげでここにおるというのが実態だろう。
你都在我的手上变成过沙子，你没资格说我。
Что вы скажете о моих потомках? Алиса, Брайан, Йошимицу и Джек. Все они зависят от меня. Пока живы они, я в известной степени буду жить вечно, как их создатель.
Even with these nagging issues around its narrative, perhaps there's a secret to the success of Tekken that goes beyond just being a series that is decades old by now. The best regarded fighting games have always had a diverse cast, with a range of characters that can be classified as heroes, villains, or even freaks. Some of the less popular fighting games have either contained characters who are a little too straightforward at a glance, or veer so much to a particular angle that what becomes its biggest selling factor is also its biggest detriment when it comes to reaching outside its already acquired audience. Tekken has managed to circumvent these issues over time because its roster has become filled with a large number of characters serving as ciphers, appealing to all players to one degree or another, whether they find a personal attraction to a particular character's design and behavior, or one best suitable for whatever power fantasy they want to have fulfilled. That is where having characters painted in broad strokes works out to the series' benefit, because players can then imbue whatever remaining traits they'd want their chosen character to have, making their own investment that much more intimate or personal. Tekken's cast can fill so many desired molds, and the developers' historical attempts to differentiate themselves from the competition has allowed the series to become perceived on their own terms. With all that being said, just because it's been a proven method doesn't mean the characters of Tekken shouldn't ever have more depth, because it would still potentially make them that much more compelling in the long run. Perhaps these are just not the kinds of questions the designers can or want to answer in these games, where they're better off prioritizing fine-tuning the gameplay over narratives or introspections. Sometimes that sort of character development is better handled in separate games or other mediums. Fortunately, with the Tekken franchise being as ubiquitous as it is, it has quite a history of branching into other genres and media. The results of those endeavors, however, are, well, a subject for another time.